Okay, everyone. Hi. Thank you so much for sticking around. My name is Marina Lopes. I am an adjunct at the School of Communications and a journalist. And on behalf of all journalists, let me be the first to welcome you all to the death spiral that is coming. In journalism, as I'm sure all of you know, we have been dealing with the impacts of a technological revolution that has changed the economics at the foundation of what we do. This is one of my favorite New Yorker cartoons. Superman is doing super, but Clark can't find a newspaper that's hiring. That's been our reality in the journalism world. And I say all this just to point out that in the School of Communications, we have been thinking about the role of formal higher education in a very uncertain economic climate for a long time. So this is not something that's brand new to us. And in doing so, we've come up with a sort of the fundamental advantages of a higher education degree. This isn't what my slide was supposed to look like, but we're just going to go with it because I think it didn't fully load. But basically, if you look at what a formal, in-person higher education environment offers, what we're really hoping that students take away from it is academic integrity, critical thinking skills, social skills, and then of course the in-classroom learning process, right? How do we learn from each other and with each other? And that directly maps on, in my opinion, to the threats of AI to that system, right? We are seeing a massive threat to academic integrity, as we've already talked about. It's very hard to ensure critical thinking skills are happening at home when you give homework assignments and all the answers are readily available. I find that this also overlaps with a reduction in social skills. Students talk less to each other, talk more to their computers. And it's making in-person learning for many people obsolete. Why would I pay for a college degree when I can get it for free at Khan Academy? But I argue that if we use AI, we can also enhance some of these skills that can only happen in the classroom. And that is what I have been doing in my journalism classroom. I'm using AI to develop academic curiosity, to develop critical thinking, to develop hard work, discipline, social skills. And so here are the three primary ways that I've been sort of taking the good and leaving the bad. Curriculum modifications, an AI disclosure form, and most importantly, for today's purposes, are interactive exercises that I design with AI. And that's what I think my value added is here today. We've talked a lot about AI disclosure forms, how they work, how they don't. And I think all of us are modifying our curriculum in the face of AI. Basically, my curriculum modifications look a lot more like in-class writing as opposed to homework assignments. I'm grading less on prose and much more on reporting, structure, organization. Everyone can write beautiful prose with ChatGPT, but I want to know that you understand how to craft an argument. That makes sense. I want to know if you understand the structure of an article, for example. My AI disclosure form, the only other thing I'll say about it is that I ask students to send me their chat. So you can actually export a chat on ChatGPT. That way I can see if they're just copying and pasting the prompt. It discourages that because I can see it. And I can also see at what point they are using AI, and we can talk about whether they need to do more brainstorming on their own before they turn to AI. But what I really want to talk about today are these interactive exercises that I've designed using AI. And what I found is that when I use AI to develop these exercises, the result is laptops closed, eyes up, students talking to each other, which in this day and age is very rare and my goal at the end of every class. So here are some examples of how I've replaced homework that I used to assign with in-class exercises. So we used to have a breaking news exercise where students had to go home and write a breaking news assignment based on a series of like reporters' notes that we would give them. Instead of that, I now do a breaking news simulation in my classroom using AI to generate everything from uncooperative sources who don't want to tell the students information, anonymous emails that show up suddenly in class, dead-end press conferences with a mayor who doesn't want to take accountability. And so the students have to, in real time, make decisions around these prompts and work together to figure out how to report on, this real life scenario. And I do this for all different kinds of assignments. We used to have an AP Style homework assignment. For those of you who don't know, AP Style is the Associated Press grammar and writing guide about specific ways in which we journalists talk about things. It used to be sort of a rote memorization assignment that they would do at home. Now, thanks to AI, I have created a relay race to see who can fix sentences using proper AP style the fastest, and students love this. It also gets them into a mode that I think is much more realistic when we think of life beyond the classroom, right? In a newsroom, you have to edit things quickly. People are depending on you. They're waiting for accurate copy. And so if you can bring that into the classroom, it sort of snaps them out of the mode where they're just looking online for answers and gets them into a problem-solving, cooperative mode. Finally, instead of a broadcast writing worksheet where students have to translate news reporting from written press into a script that would work for broadcast, we do a live show with AI-sponsored prompts that lead to all different kinds of reporting on a fictional town where tornadoes are happening and there's a spelling bee and all these things are happening at the same time. And students have to record this live show in real time. So this is an example of the breaking news simulation that I mentioned. This is what pops up in the middle of class, a bunch of tweets on something happening at the train station this morning. Buses and trains are down. What's going on? And so very quickly, students get this press release delivered to their email saying that there are severe technical difficulties that have stopped all public transportation in DC. They have to, as a group, figure out where they're going to go, who they're going to talk to. Inevitably, they decide to go to a train station, talk to a commuter. I get a script from AI about what I should answer to their questions as the commuter. Then we have a very uncooperative mayor's press conference. Eventually, he admits that there has been a cyber attack on the transit system. Students have to call a cybersecurity expert. I've got the whole script written with AI. And so again, this is working those critical thinking skills. It's a very dynamic environment. This is how real reporting works. You have to think about questions quickly. You have to know how to interact with an expert. And finally, they get a statement from a terrorist organization claiming responsibility, and they have to decide, do we trust this statement? Do we not? How do we report on this? So this is just one example of how I think we can take AI to do what technology cannot replicate. And that's that in-person, dynamic learning experience. This is what students are paying for today. It's not going to be the information that you can deliver because that's available for free online. It's going to be those connections that they make, the social skills that they build, the critical thinking that they do in class in real time. And I've been able to do that using AI as a spark for that in-person creative learning. Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, hi. First of all, really fun and very dynamic. I have a question about how do you set up your class kind of workflow for these breaking news? What is the environment like? How is this delivered? Do you still become the driver, or do you kind of disseminate your bots and see what happens as students interact?
So I start the class with sort of an overview of what we're going to do, and then I let students decide. I normally divide them up into groups because I find that groups of 3 or 4 deliver the most engagement. In those groups, they have to come up with their own response. And sometimes you get very different responses from different groups, which is fascinating. Today we did a crisis communication simulation. One group was representing United. They took full responsibility for a crisis. The other group took no responsibility for a crisis, and we had to figure out, okay, where do we take this from here? This is the beauty of using AI. You could, of course, say, well, you could just come up with this on your own. You can, but the amount of work that it would take for me to come up with a million different responses, depending on how the students respond, it's just something that's not feasible for a busy professor, right? But with AI, I can very quickly respond to where they're taking it and respond using what I would believe to be a real world consequence, if they decide to follow that route. But it does give them a lot more freedom as to how they think they should respond, if that makes sense.
Do you ever use any visuals, so like a photojournalistic supplement per se?
I do when I'm using real world examples. So I don't fabricate everything online using AI, but I do often use real world examples. So for example, today with our crisis communication plan, I used a real example of United kicking a passenger off a plane and a video that went viral. AI helped me to walk them through the different roles that a crisis communication firm would operate in that environment. So I would assign a CEO position, I would assign an internal comms position, an external comms position for each person in the class, and then they'd have to work together to come up with a solution. But I would use real video from the incident, for example. I've also had students come up with their own AI-generated visuals for social media posts and that kind of a thing. It's not something that I require, but it's fun to sort of see where they take things and how what they can come up with themselves.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the very interesting presentation.